Apologies for the delay, but we don't have a very long evening session, so we only have we have three speakers, and then we will have the privilege of having a music session with a former student of ours and a guitarist who will be accompanying her. So she's flexible, and it's okay if we take a little bit longer. So I am very happy to introduce my esteemed colleague, Professor Leonor Moral, who is many things. She holds a PhD from the European University Institute, as you know, high top-level education institution for PhDs and master's programs. She is interdisciplinary. She works from the perspective of legal theory, but also of administrative law. She has been interested in education law for a long time. She has written extensively. She has published a very nice book on early dropouts in education with a comparative perspective, also with our Portuguese colleagues who have made substantial efforts to reduce dropouts. Well, she's also a very good friend. We meet now and then to discuss education law, to discuss other topics in European law as well. So I'm very thankful that she accepted the invitation to come to Albacete for the second time in 1 month. And we are abusing her knowledge and her skills. And so, as I said, thank you very much for coming, and the floor is yours, Leonor.
Well, Pablo, thank you. Pablo, thank you very much for the invitation, really. So, thank you very much for the invitation. So I will come every time you call me. So it's really nice being here with such good friends and colleagues, because abroad the administrative law department, I have also colleagues in this university. So thank you very much for the invitation, and really congratulations for this. The organization of this session. It's really, for me, so helpful and an eye-opening, really. And I have the challenge to give the talk and prevent you from falling asleep. So I will try my best. I don't have any PowerPoint, so I want you to focus the attention on me. Whatever. The topic of my presentation is inclusive education. Well, it's the right of education and in the use of edu technology. So the use of artificial intelligence in particular in the area of education in order to provide the service of education. My main point is that the use of edu technologies is changing very much the content of the right of education and the content of the public service of education, and it has also it has consequences in the development of areas like long learning or even the place or the role that non-discrimination and equality plays in education. Anyway, so when I talk about edutech, so I really much rely on a philosopher, and a French philosopher called Jacques Ellul, who speaks about technology as a system in itself, that it has its own rationality and its own goals. We tend to apply that kind of system that, as I said, it has its own rationality into areas like education, and we may not be aware of the effects and distortions that this application poses into the area that we will know as the right of education and the public service of education. Anyway, so as far as the point of view we have against, well, towards technology, if you stop a moment and think about, it's not about, we are not debating, for example, where should we go using education. It's basically what we are discussing in Europe is how do we defend ourselves from technologies. So we do not have an approach, a humanistic approach of what we can do with technologies in order to have a better education. It's rather how can we protect education from the interactions or the use of technologies. In that sense, so because we are in this so to say a scenario of defending ourselves from technologies, we are using, we meaning European, because it's not the same approach that the Chinese or the American do. But we Europeans are using human rights in order to defend ourselves, to protect ourselves from the risks of technologies, also in the area of education. We European, as I said, use the notion of fundamental rights that is a very well established and probably the made up in European Union is in the publishing of any charter of human rights. Well, as I said, we use fundamental rights in two ways when dealing with technologies. We use them in order to define what is a high-risk technology, and we use also human rights in order to develop an impact assessment upon human rights that the technology may possess. So, in order to define what is a technology, a high-risk technology, and in order to control the risks of, identify the risks and decide what kind of measure, we may adopt, we use, as I said, the notion of fundamental rights. As you know, as far as the definition of, I'm going to escape a part of the, because of that you will say, 5 minutes. Well, for example, in the definition, if you see the definition of high-risk technology in Article 6.2 of the European Law of Artificial Intelligence, you will find that those are referred as the well, I'm skipping some of the definition, but the law establishes that high-risk technologies are those that are mentioned in Annex 3 of the regulation. In Annex 3 of the regulation, we find technologies applied to education, especially in the area of access to education, evaluation of results, and assessment of results in education, and the proctoring system to control a classroom. But what it is important is that although the Article 6 of the regulation says that high-risk technologies are also embedded in Annex 3, there is another clause that says that prima facie, those high-risk technology, if they do not pose major risks to fundamental rights, are not high-risk technology. So it's like a derogation clause, if you may. And the derogation clause of what is a high-risk technology is based on the impact that this technology has upon fundamental rights again. So As you see, fundamental rights is used to define what is a high risk. Is used also to define what is not a high risk technology, even though the legislator at the prima facie thought it was a high risk technology. And because we are starting in this area, we don't know what is a high risk or not a high risk technology. The regulation also says that the Commission, the European Commission, will approve a list of use cases in which it would say, the Commission will say, that is a high risk technology, this is not a high risk technology. That is to say that the Commission is going to strike balances on fundamental rights by listening what is a high risk or not a high risk technology. And that is, and then I started to wonder, okay, so the Commission doing balances on fundamental rights, that is very weird, because in our tradition, I mean, a European tradition, who strikes balances between among fundamental rights are judges, basically, not the European Commission. But anyway, so we keep on moving and we see. Now, as I said, fundamental rights are also very important in the area of controlling these technologies. Not only high-risk technology, because high-risk technology, we know that they have to fulfill this assessment on the impact of fundamental rights. We know that. So, okay, that is one thing. But what happened with all the non-high-risk technology? Do they have any fundamental rights are used somehow to control the impact that they may have in fundamental rights? And my point of view is that, yes, they have. Why? Because the European Union has approved just last summer this directive on due diligence. And the directive on due diligence incorporates, demands that enterprises have to assess the impact upon fundamental rights of the technologies that they are developing. Therefore, we have again fundamental rights there, not only in the impact assessment that we don't know who is going to work, but we have also fundamental rights in the due diligence and directive and the process that very much launched by international law we have also here in the European Union. Now, and then we have also another thing that administrative lawyers love, some we love it and some we hate it, which is the nitty-gritty harmonization things. So the very particular rules, and that is really striking me because the European Commission say here, and we will apply the so-called harmonization of new approach, it's called like that, in which we have on the first level the general directive or general regulations that are issued by the Commission and by the Parliament and the Council. So then we have technical norms, and the technical norms are of two kinds, and that is a novelty of two kinds. So one is the harmonized technical rules that private like the CELENEC, ISTI, ISO, ISO, so this private big organization issued those kind of harmonizing rules, so that is one. And the other one is something that the Commission decided to apply is rules that also have a technical content, and the Commission will approve them as executive acts if the Commission doesn't like the harmonization, the technical rules that are approved by the private organization, or if there is no rules on harmonization rules, or the rules do not satisfy the the requirements of the Commission. Anyway, the Commission enters into this idea of ruling technical details of those technologies based on, again, fundamental rights, based on the impact of the technology that the technology may have in fundamental rights. So it's fundamental rights, as you say, it's going to be really a tool for governance in AI and in any technology, also in education technologies, from the point of view of the definition, but also from the point of view of how we rule, how to control, how we legislate upon this technology. Okay, and what I wanted to spill out to say here is what kind of fundamental rights may be involved in edu technologies, because of course the right of education comes to our mind as a matter of course, but what is the content of the right of education that the European Union, the Commission, is thinking of when using the idea of high-risk technology or impact assessment technology of these edu technologies. So, as I said, this technology, the edu technologies, the technologies applied to education, are conceived as a high-risk technology in 4 fields. Basically, that is what the Annex 3 of the regulation, of the European regulation says. The first case of use is edu technology that applies to the access of education and admission of education. And the technologies that are used also to distribute students across different institutions. So that's one high-risk technology that is supposed to be controlled by these impact assessments upon human rights, fundamental rights. The other one is technology that evaluates the outcomes of the learning process. And that is very important because even though in the case of intelligent tutoring system, this technology is subject to these impact assessments on fundamental rights, because it says not only evaluate, but evaluate in order to orientate what is the next step in the learning process of the student. The third one, technology, is the technology used in order to evaluate the level of the educative level of the pupil, of the student. What is the level? Is it primary education, secondary education, upper secondary education? Is prepared to vet education, vocational education and training? So that is also a technology that is conceived as a high-risk technology and therefore subject to the impact assessment upon fundamental rights. And finally, the other technology, the fourth technology that is considered as a high risk is the one to control and surveil the
recognition.
It's not face recognition. It's what these people are doing. Whether are they sleeping? Are they just looking at down? Are they paying attention to me? Are they smiling? Are they boring? Are they bored? That is the proctoring. No, yeah, exactly. It's the proctoring, and the people say that, but that is what the human me do. What is must be high risk in the case of our technology, and why, if the professor is doing so, is not high risk, and there is nobody thought about the breach or the risk of fundamental rights. So that is the case. And well, what I want to do in 5 minutes, I promise you, Pablo, 5 could be 7 minutes. Is the kind of fundamental rights that the technologies that I mentioned may infringe. So, of course, the first one is the right to education. And the right of education, when we talk about edu technologies, so technologies applied to the education, one has to keep in mind that, as I said before, the rationale of the technical system, of the technology system, is economic, is make business, is make profits. So in that sense, the technology normally it applies in areas where they are well-off students, where the provider or the developer knows that is going to obtain benefits. The technology is not neutral. So the technology, forget it, is not, doesn't seek of good students and very well formed. The technology is just making money and not the humanistic training of the student. That's one thing. And the other thing is very important is that the technology develops not in the area we want it to develop. So, and that is a debate we are not holding, because we are not holding any debate on what the education should be, or how to use technology for what purpose in education. No. So we are just thinking about, how can we apply this new technology in my classroom without thinking about the consequences it has. So is that we are like the boy with the new toy. So we have to play with it because it's going to be wonderful. But it's the technology, that is very important. It develops in the area. It can develop. That is very cryptic. But it will develop in the area. It could technically, from the point of view of the development of the technique, it can develop in particular areas and not in other. For example, it will develop very well in the areas of detecting difficulties of learning, but it develops not that well in the area of assisting a student with Asperger, for example, with difficulties, cognitive difficulties. Why? Because we have developed the natural language technology, and that is really wonderful to apply in the area of learning difficulties that related to language. Learning difficulties like speaking or writing or so and so forth. Anyway, I think that there are many debates that we are not facing. We are avoiding, probably not consciously, just because we are with the new toy and we have to apply that. For example, what is we don't think about the pedagogical model behind the technology, just we apply. But we don't think, hey, is using a student-centered pedagogic perspective or not? Or what is the fundamental, the basic competences that this technology promotes are the competences that this student at that age should have. So that's something that we don't think about. So, because if the technology comes here, someone has thought about us. So we say, hey, that is how technology is well done. For example, the use of technology in relationship to teachers. Is the technology has arrived in order to replace teachers? Because some student will say, yes, just go out, especially in higher education. At the university, some of my students will say, yes, prefer that than the bossy teacher. Anyway, so there are other debates that I'm not going to detail here, but that we are not facing it, probably because the technology evolves so quickly that we are not prepared to keep up the track and meet the moral demands and the philosophical demands that the use of this technology has in education. So, for example, risks that this technology may have. In access, inequitable access to education. Of course, I mean, this technology really poses, the education technology really poses a great risk in the equitable access to education if they are not designed with the participation of the groups they aim to. If they are thought by a white man, well-educated in California, it probably will miss the scope of dealing with girls in India learning in primary education. So probably will miss everything on the context of the application of the technology. So the other problem we have with the technology, and the other problem that it poses to equitable access to technology, is that not everybody has the device or the connection to access. And even when we have the device or the connection, the internet connection, we may not have the knowledge in order, so the literacy enough. We don't have the knowledge to use in a wise way those technologies. So that poses also a fundamental problem for inequality in education. Only those who has the access to the device, but also those who has the literacy in digital literacy can benefit from the edu technologies, not the other one. So it will create probably more inequality than it will solve. So be careful of that. And another problem, so I'm really quickly, another problem is like the quality of education. That is a risk very much, that we see very much in some politicians, because we are kind of, we have to use edu technology. Imagine we are excited with the idea, politicians are even more excited with the idea of replacing teachers that are very costly, that are very problematic. They make strikes now and then. And it's like, they think, they have their ideas on their own. It's awful. So why not change the technology? Why not replace the professors by technology? And that may be a good solution, and it was thought about that, in areas of Spain that are depopulate, you say? Depopulate. So that we call it la España vaciada. So it's the empty Spain. So in this area, why not to provide this technology for the student of 6 years old which no teachers around 100 kilometers? And that is true. I mean, we may be inclined to say, yes, go for that. That is a good solution. But it doesn't solve the main problem. And the main problem is that there is no teacher in an area where it should be a teacher. Because as we learned, the learning is about accompanying an adult, accompanying the children to adulthood. I would add that it's not only be accompanied by a teacher, it's accompanied by peers, and fight and agree and have love and many quarrels in the life. So be careful, because again, it seems that edu technology comes here to help us, and maybe it will cause problems that we try to solve in a different way. So that will I escape? And I would escape. So another problem, another fundamental rights. So I have it is more developed in written in the paper. It's more developed, but here I will escape some of the ideas, because I will want to mention other risks that edu technology poses. For example, for human dignity. And in human dignity, I have a very good example. And the example is a real one, it's based on real cases. It's an example of high school in China, and where the students were obliged to wear helmets, And the helmets had electric sensors. Electric, yeah. So like, imagine a helmet with wires like that. And so there was a blue light when the activity of the child was I'm paying attention to the professor, professor. And it was like a red when the student was like doing something else. And of course, we may talk about the right of education, but of course, it violates the principle of dignity. It's true that in China, probably they have another concept of dignity that we may have, we Europeans may have. But again, we may accept, not that helmet thing, but we may accept the use of devices that collect that data of the children if the parents know the impact or the extent of the data that they are gathered. The use of the data, whether the data are going to be sold outside the classroom or not, whether they are going to be deleted, whether they are going to be used by the teacher in order to discriminate the class, you red, you blue, things like that. We may think that, okay, the dignity is not an absolute value, human dignity is not an absolute value, but we may defend our notion, our idea of dignity also when we talk about e-proctoring. That's why the idea of e-proctoring comes here. The right not to be discriminated, that is a fundamental right that over and over and over is in danger, it's at risk when we talk about edu technologies for various reasons. First of all, because probably there are certain groups that are not involved in the design of the technology. Therefore, those groups, as I said, the Indian child in Calcutta is not the needs, the educational needs of the child is not taken account by the white men well-educated in California. So it's either there is a participation of these vulnerable groups or they are going to finish even more discriminated. Habría que ir acabando. So I said that Pablo will say, just 1 minute. Okay. So these are, I will finish with this idea, with this right. There are more rights, but I will finish with this one. There is something that I wanted to say about this right not to be discriminated in the use of educational technologies. And it's two things. First of all, that the educational technology functions in a way, because people think that there is personalized education, that we end with the personalized education, because they discovered when the technician told us about personalized education, it's like, what is what we do as a teacher? So I thought that I was personalizing my teaching every time when I ask my student how it's going, how you understand. But anyway, California discovered personalized education eventually. It's not after centuries of doing that in the classrooms. And the problem is that how the technology works is by making profiles of students. It's not personalized in the sense that we understood personalization of education. It's personalized in the sense that the white men, well-educated in California, creates packages of students, models of students. And what it does, the technology does, is gather data of the students and decide to place it in one category or in another category. This idea is very scary. I find it's very scary. The idea that someone who with no idea of psychology, education, pedagogy, or fundamental rights is able to place his students into models is really scary. Anyway, so that is very discriminating also, because it depends on the packages, it depends on the models that the technician has created. We fit into it or we do not fit into it. And again, the problem of discrimination comes, because if I don't fit into the category, I'm not going to be to make advantage of the technology. And the other thing is that the data that technology is used may be biased. Of course, may be biased. All the programmer also may introduce may put into the code the bias that he or she has, but also the data that train the algorithm are biased. Why? Because think about when we, as professors, as teachers, we devote more effort to those who we think they could take more advantage. So that is very extreme in countries like Korea. In Korea, it's like, you are good, you're bad. And if you are good, I will give you a lot of classes, and I will give you tutors, and I will provide you more material to learn. But if you are bad students, you are neglected. And then what we have is the data that say that people from certain areas or from certain racial minority group, or they are not good students. But they are not good students, and it's true, they are not good students, because you see the statistics, and they are not good students, but because the data are already biased by a practice that is biased in itself. Anyway, what I wanted to say, and that is my final word, I had a lot to say, but it's my final word, is that whenever we talk about technology and fundamental rights, we think always, the lawyers, we should learn a lot about technology. We have to keep up, and we have to, because we have to know more about how the algorithm work. My point is true, that is true. But it is very scary to know that the white man, very well educated in California, doesn't have any training in law, in fundamental rights, in education, in pedagogy, in anything like that. And it's very scary for me to think that we are using those technologies as if they were solve many problems. And my point is that they will transform education. It's transforming education already, but it will cause problems that probably we are not aware of them now. So thank you very much. In time.
Allow me to introduce my very good friend Maria Smirnova, who is also, like me, an old-timer in ELA already. We met in 2010 in Antwerp in a very nice summer school program on education law with, I guess, all or at least most of the key professors at the time working on education law and education policy. It was extremely fruitful for us. I think we both remember that time as a very important and productive 10 days in our lives. And since then, we have been meeting and seeing each other in ELA meetings on and off all over the world, more or less. So it's really a pleasure for the first time to have you in a conference in Spain. Maria Smirnova is a human rights officer working for the mandate of the Special Rapporteur on the right to education. She holds 2 PhDs. One only, I think. I thought it was 2. One. No, but anyway, so. From what was the British Manchester University? Okay. But she did postdoc studies in Manchester, where she expanded her knowledge on education law, on policy. She has also very much worked with Jan Neurov, so she's also very well led, very well guided, as we all are. It's absolutely impossible to describe the many things that Maria can do from the intellectual perspective, but also as a member of ELA, putting a lot of enthusiasm and making things happen and succeed. So it's really very nice to have you here, Maria, and of course the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pablo. Thank you for inviting me. It's very nice to be here. And of course, many thanks to Jan, who is our mentor. The whole generation of ELA scholars are growing with immense gratitude to what you did to our lives and our careers in education law. Thank you. So, like Pablo mentioned, I work for the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. I work in a team supporting the work of the Special Rapporteur on the right to education, Farida Shahid. And I'm here today delighted to present our most recent work, the report of the Special Rapporteur on artificial intelligence in education, which was presented by Farida Shahid, there she is on the screen, in October this year at the General Assembly in New York. This is the report and the reference you can easily find in UN databases, but I would like to go through a couple of issues which I found interesting working on this report and reading a lot of research submissions that we received in preparation for this report. I'd like to share some of the findings. I'd like to share with you the 10 key strategies that the Special Rapporteur proposes to ensure or try to ensure that fundamental human rights are respected when AI is used in education. And hopefully to hear out your grounded criticism of this work, which we are of course open to, otherwise I wouldn't be here. I really appreciated what Leonor said. It's almost like the first half of my presentation I can just skip on advantages or opportunities of AI to advance the right to education and risks, of course, which are well known. But let me still outline a few ideas which I wanted to share with you. So as we heard today, and many thanks to Klaus Beiter, who very helpfully referred to a few of the previous reports of the mandate, that education technology is not new, and it has been discussed, including by the mandate of the Special Rapporteur in many reports. And since 2000, since the first Special Rapporteur, the conclusion is the same. And the principle, we stick to this principle, that digitalization in education should never replace on-site teaching with teachers, in-person interaction between teachers and students, that education is a collective and social endeavor, and that schools are venues for children to socialize and learn to live together. So we stand by this principle, and the mandate is very strongly supporting this idea. With AI, of course, it's ed tech, but slightly different. It kind of brings the conversation to a new level. It brings some unique challenges, which makes us rethink curriculum, pedagogy, assessment, the trilogy of education process, which really needs to be, we need to rethink that. But the main question, again, remains. We don't just pick up everything tech and shiny and think, let's just implement it because it's nice. We want to approach this process from the position of what is the added value of AI in realization, not just realization at the basic level, but advancement of the right to education. There is research out there claiming that, AI is so great, it's going to now help us advance all SDGs all at once, progress achieved 20 times quicker and we'll be, you know, where we should be in 6 years' time. Yeah, the question is how exactly, let's look through this lens. How does AI advance the right to education and solve those persisting problems which exist in education, especially of the most marginalized? So when we talk about opportunities for artificial intelligence to advance the right to education, we can try to look through the 4A framework, availability, accessibility, accountability, adaptability, so the 5A in this case, with accountability, to kind of understand, does AI really add to availability? We received a lot of submissions on the different types of AI applications. I'm not even going into that because they appear on a daily basis. There's just so many, and also like you don't need sometimes a permission of your school, so it's not recorded which AI applications I'm going to use in my class today. So it's really difficult to track. And it's very difficult to have any scientific research by any means, you know, empirical on what is the exact impact of AI technologies on students and teachers. You know, it took us at least 10 years to analyze the first impact of social media and internet and smartphones on children's health since they were first introduced. The first research, longitudinal, only appears now. Yeah, so the long-term impact is not known. As Klaus mentioned today, the studies of impact is mostly produced by those who develop the tools, which is a little bit biased in my view. So we need to be always careful with the sources of that research. Does AI advance availability of education? In some way, yes, when we talk about scaling good quality tutoring for low cost across various polities. So yes, maybe, but as already been mentioned, it is very much dependent on infrastructure, devices, stable electricity, internet. So cost remains a barrier, and the applications are produced by private actors. So it is a yes, but does it increase the accessibility of education? As we heard today again, yes, for students with disabilities. There are many examples how AI applications can recognize sign language and translate it into an audible or readable material. And vice versa, how audible is translated into braille. This is all, it's not science fiction these days, or emotional recognition tools for students with autism, or various adaptive platforms for those who struggle with writing in dyslexia and so on. So there are examples. So yes, but in order to make these tools efficient, there needs to be enough data, and there's currently a lack of data on how AI algorithms actually interact with children with disabilities, there is some evidence of individuals with disabilities being discriminated against, and there's definitely a lack of data on unconscious and conscious societal biases when it comes to how AI interacts with children with maybe people with facial asymmetries and so on. So also another, at a human level, there is a concern that technological solutionism does not really work for people with disabilities or for learners with disabilities, because first of all, AI technology can never replace human interaction for anyone, but for children with disabilities which may need additional empathy and support, it can even be dangerously segregationist. You will say, oh, but we have provided all the assistive technology, so we've ticked the box. But how about empathy? How about human interaction, which some people may need even more? So yeah, for children with or learners with linguistic diversity, again, accessibility can be increased. But as we all know, say for generative AI, a lot of natural language processing tools are based on English and language, and there are so few examples available in other languages. There are greater linguistic representation in AI training data and algorithm development is necessary. Then for adaptability, we can claim that AI-generated content creation, presentation tools can quickly incorporate various new ideas and information into curricula. So it makes it more responsive to diverse learning styles and requirements, both for teachers and learners. But again, there are issues of academic integrity and that we can talk about later. On accountability, we've received evidence that school support management systems use AI for data analytics, descriptive analytics, and predictive analytics. And there are also examples, very interesting examples, of the use of AI in nationwide education system management to predict and address early dropouts, or address those students which are at risk of dropouts. And these are interesting ideas, but there are also risky examples when, for example, AI systems in Nevada, an algorithm was used to redefine criteria to determine additional funding for at-risk students. And somehow the algorithm messed up and basically said, oh, we don't need 200,000 students. They are not at risk, actually only 60,000 are at risk. So by limiting the number of at-risk students, the AI allowed the Department for Education to save a lot of money, but excluded the formerly at-risk students from this protection scheme. So risks and challenges are well known and well articulated today. I will not talk about it at length. Maybe I would like to stop at the idea of privatization and platformization of education as one of the risks associated with AI. We received evidence that commercial enterprises, the developers of AI, are actually aggressively pushing AI solutions into classrooms. They promote digital systems for all sorts of purposes, of course, because it's a very lucrative market. It's estimated to be worth $20 billion by 2027. It's a lot of money, and data becoming new oil means that the education sector opens up a lot of unmined data, previously unmined, on children that people can basically make a lot of money off. There's an interesting number here that on average, by a child's 13th birthday, advertisers will have gathered more than 72 million data points about them. And where do they get this information from? From automated education management systems, or social media. So it's really. And then even if private actors provide something to schools for free, which rarely happens, but they do it. Why do they do it? Because they get lifelong customers from very early age. Like they get people hooked on their products. Yeah. So, and this is on the one hand. On the other hand, schools are constantly pressured by education management for digital transformation. We all need digital transformation, right? So these two factors come together to provide a very a field full of harvest for tech companies. And then we we can see that school budgets, which is public money, are then redirected to buy more and more tech. So basically, this is an indirect privatization of public education through a redirection of public funds to tech companies. So it's problematic. And we can also very quickly talk about digital inequalities, as Leonor already mentioned, and other speakers as well. The AI, the more it grows, the more obvious it is that the gap is only widening. Those who have access to internet and are connected to good infrastructure will get much more out of education than those who don't have any access. So, and actually, in UNESCO even proposed in 2019 that access to the internet should be considered a fundamental human right. We can debate, but I think it's an interesting idea. Life moves on, right? And the 21st century rights, such as access to the internet or the right to not be a subject of a decision made solely on the basis of AI, is reality. We need, at some point, we will need to fight for those human rights. Then, as I mentioned, there's a changing nature of learning, teaching, and assessment. There's an urgent need to rethink assessment. It's so easy to generate college-level papers because they follow almost an algorithmic structure. And it's already a reality when students generate answers through ChatGPT, and teachers assess those answers through ChatGPT. So it's a one chat talking to another chat. Where is learning here? And we need to ask, where is the actual learning? So maybe there's a way to rethink assessment through increasing class-based work, competency-based curriculum. Maybe there's a way to replace high-stakes testing, tick the box, multiple choice exercise, which a computer can be trained to do, by a form of continuous assessment, like an assessment which would assess a student against him or herself yesterday. So the individual progress of a person, rather than comparing across the board. So why don't we look at that type of assessment? Then there's a risk of deprofessionalization of teaching. Yes, AI frees up a lot of teachers' time, and they could spend that time on more meaningful interactions with the students, if they do, or they could go and drink coffee in the park, which is also fine. They need it with the level of work, right? The overworked, underpaid teachers do need a coffee in the park. But the problem here is that an increasing number of decisions are affected by algorithms, pedagogical decisions. So teachers become just facilitators, just reading out of a tablet people, or don't even need to read. You can just press play if it's a repeated information. So where is personalization? That deprofessionalization of teaching is a real risk, and also it is connected with undermined academic freedom through increased role of digital intermediaries. So there's always this need to balance technology and still, dialogue, critical thinking, and debate. I will not stop at all on privacy and data protection. There has been a lot said about it. Maybe just one example. I found it interesting that, when we all open websites and tick the box, I consent. Let's think about it. Do minors consent in the same way as adults when they go on the website and when they're forced to join or to create an account with Google because the educational institution requires them to do? There's no opting out. The terms and conditions are non-negotiable. So the child clicks I consent. is it right to ask the child to exchange his or her privacy for access to education? It's a big question for me. And in Sweden, for example, the Data Protection Authority fined a municipality for violating the European GDPR regarding consent, noting that the power imbalance between students or their guardians and the school and the AI or like edtech corporations meant that consent could not be deemed to have been given freely. And I think it's a very important example, which we need more of those examples. Then there's, of course, the issue of algorithmic biases. I'm running out of time. Student well-being and mental health. Let me just, in the next 5 minutes, go through the strategies that the report suggests for aligning AI in education with human rights frameworks and principles. And I would like to underline again that in the view of the Special Rapporteur, again, technological solutionism is not always realistic from the right to education perspective. We can't say the AI will come and solve all our problems, but we must, absolutely must, think of this opportunity to take this leap in technology development and think how can we use AI to address the most persisting challenges in education: basic illiteracy, teacher shortages, low enrollment, high dropouts, gender imbalance, stereotypes. So all these societal issues which did not arise with the AI, didn't really affect they've been with us for centuries. But it's our task under international human rights law, and if we take into account commitments under SDGs, to address these issues. And it's an urgent task. Eventually, it's the human capacity and collective action and not technology which will determine how successful we are in this task. So quickly through the strategies, we suggest adhere to human rights principles, so always keep in our mind what is the right to education, that the right to provide, the right to access public, free, quality education, and the state's commitment under international human rights law to ensure lifelong learning opportunities for all. So human rights apply both online and offline, and there should be no exception. And all actors, states, international organizations, civil society actors, business enterprises, I want to highlight, tech companies included, individuals, so have a responsibility for ensuring human rights-based approach to AI in education. Educational institutions have a special role because while we are at the university setting also here, there's a way to promote human rights by design mindset in the young students learning how to manage education, but also how to create technology. So this is a meeting place for both educators and technology creators. We need to close all digital divides as a matter of priority. And I say all because, of course, there are rural, urban divides, gender divide, age, developing countries versus developed countries. Closing digital divides is not just to ensure internet connectivity and device availability, but also instructional design and how students use AI tools, especially those from marginalized backgrounds. One of the important strategies is to engage stakeholders. Teachers are not asked at all sometimes when new technology is introduced. There's some contract signed with Microsoft, and here you go, here's your smart board, learn how to work on it. Is it pedagogically justified? Is another question, right? And that's the next line also in the strategy. Ensure that artificial intelligence is aligned with educational goals. So it shouldn't be just for digital transformation sake only. The use of AI should be pedagogically justified and aligned with the overarching goal of promoting quality education for all. We received some examples of interesting, trustworthy stamps, trustworthy AI stamp. Please use this specially approved pedagogical tools and so on. So there are examples out there which can be used. Implement ethical AI frameworks. And of course, UNESCO leads the way here, but we also received many submissions that states have issued guidelines and codes of conduct on the use of AI, especially in education. But so ethical frameworks are not enough. These are usually just nice, beautiful principles. We maintain that legal and policy frameworks are necessary to work with AI in education. Here, EU is ahead of the world, and you already mentioned the AI Act, which mentions that education is a high-risk area. I also liked very much that the AI Act has the right to file complaints about AI systems if the right to education is violated or somehow limited through its application. And the Council of Europe is also working on a legally binding instrument on AI in education. A very important instrument is to promote and facilitate AI literacy. Students, teachers, but also communities and general public, parents, right? And teachers, of course, need to have a proper assistance and support when they implement AI in their work, but not just here is 1 hour per year, when you can learn how to learn new technology. They need opportunities, they need incentives, and we have a whole report on teachers, also presented last year. We need to recognize the right to due process in artificial intelligence-informed decision-making, especially, like Leonor, you mentioned, in high-stake moments of students' life, suspensions, expulsions, when the decision made on the basis of AI observations, testing, recommendations concerning career choices. So these decisions need to have a human oversight and legal standards. Remedy, the right to human decision is already being formulated as one of the new 21st century human rights. We need to monitor and evaluate impact through impact assessments, algorithmic impact assessment, child's rights impact assessment, importantly for schools. There are mechanisms which already exist out there that can be used. And finally, engage in international cooperation and sharing of best practices. Hopefully that's what we are doing here today. But also good starting points are the OECD and UNESCO collections of policies and legislation, which if I am just sitting there pulling hair out of my head, how to draft a new policy on ethical implementation of AI in my country, there are already examples out there which should be consulted. One last point, moving forward, it's important that global governance initiatives are shaped with the active engagement of Global South actors. Important for the UN, we don't often speak to each other. Cross-agency collaboration is one of the recommendations of the report, because there's a lot of documentation out there, over 50 documents issued by different UN agencies on AI, but they don't talk to each other. Let's talk to each other. So that's what we're doing today. Thank you. Can I very quickly say about engage? You have the slide here, how to engage with the mandate of the Special Rapporteur. There's my email. Please just come to me if you're interested. You can subscribe to the newsletter. You can participate in expert meetings. There are contributions that we're always in need of contributions for our thematic and country-specific reports. Please get in touch. And there's also a Twitter account. So, yeah, thanks.
To conclude with this brilliant panel that I am fortunate to be chairing, I have Alexandre Moreira, from Brazil. Thank you very much for the long trip, for the big effort that you made. He has to go back tomorrow. So just to be here for 48 hours, he made a very big effort, which means that Ella is very important to him as it is to us all. Alexandre is many things. He's a legal advisor for the Central Bank of Brazil. He has been a national secretary for global protection in the Ministry for Human Rights. He's a very curious person. He has written books on education law, on family rights. He has started an association for educational rights, for quality education, for parental rights in the field of education. So he's active in many different fields. And because he's a very curious person, he is now pursuing a PhD track under the supervision of Professor Kurt Willems that we had this morning in Leuven. And I am privileged to have been a part of his, intellectual process lately. I was earlier this year, I was in Leuven, thank you, in Leuven in a doctoral seminar where I had the privilege of reading a substantial part of his PhD thesis and learning a lot and discussing a lot. And of course you can tell he's a person who is making an in-depth work when he writes, when he thinks. He never leaves a debate untouched, and he goes into the substance of every problem that you can think of when thinking about education and rights. So he's going to talk to us about part of his topic which is related to his PhD, which has to do with curriculum and what the position of individuals and the families vis-a-vis the curriculum. So a very important topic, very complex topic. Thank you very much, Alexandre. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Pablo. First of all, for the invitation, for the opportunity to be here. And thank you, Jan, for all you've been doing for education law all these years. And muchas gracias. Mainly for saying that I'm very curious. I like that. By the way, how much time do I have? 25. Okay, 25. I will start this presentation illustrating my point, saying, how do I prepare myself from this presentation? It's a kind of chaotic method. First, I saw videos in YouTube about artificial intelligence. I read interesting books on artificial intelligence. I also read science fiction on artificial intelligence. And I obviously talked to ChatGPT about how I would organize my presentation. And I got it all together and said to myself, okay, organize it. And in the end, what I did today earlier is to use my low-tech and to write down the points. And why I'm saying that? Because technology, all technology, is just a tool. It's just a means for us human beings to do better our work. But in the end, what really matters is our decision-making, which is very subjective, which is very ethical, we hope, very value-laden. And it's a challenge for me to talk right now because Leonor and Maria said everything that matters about it. So I will just try to emphasize some points. And as Pablo said, I really like to go to the basis and try to derive from the base some practical applications. And we should all start by the definitions. We can never forget definitions. I mean, what is education? For too long, we thought that education is just about accumulating knowledge. A well-educated person would be some kind of erudite person who knows a lot, who has a library in his head, and can recite a lot of things by heart. Still, a lot of people think that this is real education. But we know that real education is about human formation. Formation in all its aspects. Convention on the Rights of the Child lists these aspects: social, mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. Yes, it says spiritual also. And education is a guided process of formation. And I would say more ethically guided process of formation. Accumulation of knowledge is important for education, but again, it's just a tool. And let's remind ourselves about the concept of intelligence. Usually, when we say that someone is very intelligent, we mean that this person knows a lot of stuff, knows by heart a lot of stuff. And he's good or she's good on problem solving. He or she studied a lot for the test, and he really understood the subject. Well, again, this is an aspect of intelligence. But when you go to the roots, what it really means to be an intelligent person is to understand not the subject matter, but to understand the reality, the physical reality, the moral reality, and to know how to ethically act on this reality. Intelligere is about understanding what is the world and how to act on it. And this is a very important thing for us to remember, because artificial intelligence is about this more shallow meaning of intelligence, about problem solving, about doing best what computers always did, to process information and to deliver a logical reasoning with this information. But we must always remind ourselves that intelligence, in the deeper meaning, is something totally human. Sorry, but computers will never have intelligence in the deeper sense. Maybe in the sci-fi books and the movies, they will turn into humans. There was that fantastic movie a few years ago with that American actor who died recently. It's based on a book of Isaac Asimov. I will remember the movie in which a robot turns into human. That's very beautiful. iRobot, yes. By the way, read Isaac Asimov. This guy knew how to predict the future. It's fantastic. I recommend especially the Foundation series. It's a history of the future. And the problem with artificial intelligence is that it's not with artificial intelligence. The problem is with us. We tend to anthropomorphize everything. We like to see humanity in everything. When we were children, we saw people's face in the clouds in the sky, and we tend to see animal with human characteristics. Now, maybe we are being childish to see AI with human characteristics. Worst even, there are people starting to see AI with godlike characteristics. I discovered that there is already a religion of AI. Show me the way, AI. Well, he won't do that because AI just analyzes the information that is on the web, not the reality in itself. So maybe we should be more modest and call AI computer intelligence or called pseudo-intelligence. It's just a mockery of real intelligence. But even if we continue using AI, let's remember, it's not real intelligence. But and in the role of AI in education, well, you know, we humans, when we are confronted by a danger, our tendency is to fly or fight. Well, how would be the tendency to fly over the dangers of AI? It's just to say, oh, don't worry, nothing's happening here. Do whatever you want. It will be all right. Don't worry. And that's a logical, specific term for it. It's pessimism avoidance. Oh, you're talking about threats. No, we'll deal with it. Don't worry. It's a laissez-faire. Do whatever you want. And the fight approach is to say, no. If it's AI, it's forbidden in education. In fact, we will combat AI with AI, detecting machines, programs, AI against AI. Let's see who wins. Well, let's say that it's not feasible. It won't work. And another approach that I would call a kind of technical utopianism is to say, let's embrace AI, it will solve all our problems. It's totally uncritical. And we'll use it for everything. Let's solve all the SDG in just 1 year, maybe 1 hour with technology. Technology will solve all of our problems. Let's say our problems are human-made and they must be human-solved. The best possible technology wouldn't solve human flaws. So, my fundamental thesis is AI should be used in education. Okay, insofar it respects the aims of education, the best interests of the child, and the general human rights framework. And it's so obvious. Maria already told that in a much better way. Every new tool in education must be like this, must be a tool, but it can't be an end. And we must establish the ends. We must recognize that these tools are at our service. And AI and the curriculum. Well, I've been researching a lot about human rights and curriculum, and just to be brief here, I'm saying that curriculum is the sum of all our experience in educational settings, the broadest possible definition of curriculum. And AI can help a lot in curriculum development and design. And if we think about the applications of AI in general nowadays, it's very curious because it's different from other technologies. Usually, in the history of technologies, they made obsolete manual work. The most menial works were made unnecessary by technologies, for example, by transportation technologies, by communication technologies. But AI probably is not a risk for these more menial works, more hand-on works, manual works, sorry. But it's more a threat to, how can I say, repetitive intellectual work. It's a mix of manual and intellectual work. Non-creative intellectual work is at danger now. And it's very good. It means that what is really, really human, our creativity, can be more released from that drudgery of repetitive tasks. That's good. Real intelligence can be released. Real intelligence is about creativity, it's about imagination. And then, as I was saying, the greatest risk of AI is that we are tempted to sell our souls to the machine. And I mean, AI don't have a conscience, don't have ethical values, and don't have critical thinking. And AI can't substitute human beings on that matter. And that matter is the most important of all. So AI won't decide for human beings, but can help the decisions, can turn process into more effective ones. There are two fundamental requirements for AI in curriculum: transparency and accountability. That means we need to know when AI is being used, and we need to know what are the criteria used for AI in order to know if AI is according to human rights, it's respecting due process of law, for example. I'm finishing, and having stated that AI can be very useful in the curriculum, because one of the challenges that I saw in my research on curriculum development, it's go through all the necessary steps from the aims of education, especially those on Article 29 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, go from the aims of education to the practice in the classrooms. And AI can be very helpful with that, with helping design step-by-step procedure from going, for example, on citizenship education, very broad, to how can I teach my students about the Second World War in a way that fosters their citizenship nowadays. It can be very helpful on it. In fact, I myself have used AI for this, and it's very effective. For objectives of the curriculum, it's very useful to help refine these objectives and to update these objectives in light of the new discoveries. content. As Maria said, we need nowadays not only digital literacy, but we need also AI literacy. People need to know how to use AI and what to do with AI, and not to accept what AI is saying just uncritically. Pedagogy. There are very interesting developments in AI in pedagogy, especially for special needs students. And there is a challenge of the education system. It's about the necessity that students have sometimes for individual tutoring, and AI can help a lot with individual tutoring, with specific necessities of the students. And if you read that seminal work on the 2 sigma problem, it's about the necessity of individual attention for each student in education. AI can be very helpful with that. And the highest risk of artificial intelligence in education is about, in my opinion, assessment. Today, without even considering artificial intelligence, high-stakes testing, standardized testing has a lot of human rights issues because it can decide the future lives of the students who are being tested. And as Maria said, we must advocate now for the right to be evaluated by humans, not only by machines. And in conclusion, education should focus more and more in cultivating real intelligence, as machines are doing the cognitive hard work. The greatest danger in AI is not in an AI itself, it's to give human conscience to AI in the name of efficiency. Thank you.
Wonderful. So we now have some time with no constraints, no big constraints for debate, which is good. I was thinking about a book by a thinker who was part of the Frankfurt School of Critical Theory, Erich Fromm, The Fear of Freedom. The Fear of Freedom. I think we are very much confronted with this risk once again, the fact that we are giving up our freedom, we are giving up our essence as human beings by delegating on technologies, by allowing technologies to take responsibilities instead of making decisions. Of course, freedom comes to a cost, the cost of being wrong sometimes, of being proven wrong, of having to face the consequences of a bad decision. But that's being human as well, I think. So we're touching on very profound, very deep problems about freedom, about education, technologies confronting us again, once again, with these very important, substantial problems of humankind, of freedom, of education. So it's been terrific to listen to the three of you. We have had a theoretical and dogmatic approach, then we have had an overview of international law and international soft law texts on artificial intelligence in education, and then we have had the very philosophical perspective based on what is going on, what the risks about education are if we continue delegating our own powers, our own freedom, our own human responsibilities to technologies, which means to someone else, actually, according to different mindsets, to different interests. So the challenge for democracy, the challenge for the constitutional state, the challenge for the social or the welfare state is to stay human, to stay political, to not delegate these human responsibilities on who knows what or who knows whom. So now the floor is open, please, to your own perspectives, to your own ideas that we very much welcome. So may I grant one of our brilliant PhD students, Sandra Pampanas, the honor of breaking the ice before giving our senior researchers the floor. Sandra.
First of all, congrats for your presentations, were amazing. Well, I apologize myself for my English. I'm trying to improve myself, so I'll try to do my best for all of you. Well, also I'm quite nervous for it, but well. I'm going to just introduce my reflections onto this. I believe artificial intelligence is making a kind of revolution era. It's like industry revolution. Now I think we are into artificial intelligence revolution, which is going to make a turning point into humanity. So I think it's going to change all stuffs, but especially educational system. So I think that we must think about what teachers should do with this tool. Is going to be the same educational system? We are going to do the same things as we have been doing before? What do students want from artificial intelligence? I was a student of university last years and now in another era, I don't know how to say, not in a doctoral way, which is different, focus on to teaching. So I have this two perception. So what I think is going to change is what students need from teachers, what they need. Artificial intelligence can submit a lot of knowledge, a knowledge that is, a knowledge that has been done for years. But teachers maybe don't know all the knowledge that exists. But what students really need from these teachers? Maybe the empathy, the skills that must need to live in their lives. I don't know how to say. It's more about humanizing education, the educational system. Sorry for my English, but in Spanish I will do it better.
Very good. So please, Professor De Groof, then Professor Baita also.
Yeah, it was a dream panel. Super, all of you. So quite complimentary indeed, also very coherent. And in that dream panel, we should include the dream chairperson of the panel. But I have a few questions for all of you separately. But perhaps if you permit me, I will finish the whole list. That I will be short. And I'll eventually invite all of you to respond whatever you want. Leonor, of course we are welcoming the European Act. I would love, to be honest, to read the advice of your legal advisor on what about competences of the European Union on dealing with the implementation of the Act on the Education sector. I guess there is legal argument to argue for implementation of the Act in the education sector, but still I would love to have that advice. But the question I wanted to raise is, well, I started this morning my opening speech with, we have to shape technology according to European values and European needs, rather than allowing technology to shape humans. in your 4 risks, well, the 4 risks you mentioned, but please correct me, you did not focus on content. What is there no risk on technology, AI, not respecting diversity, the otherness, some basic values on content as such, and that also linked to the acceptability issue of the 5 A's or the 8 A's for my. Yeah, what about the cultural identity? But definitely, and you was quite provocative and correctly provocative on the Californians dealing with Indians in a total different continent. So, and what about the responsibility of education institutions, of schools? Because they have the responsibility for the education process. It's the school which is responsible for education. That's my first overall. And then perhaps also between brackets. I know that human rights experts do not agree on the hierarchy of human rights. Huge debate. But still, consensus, I guess, exists on the number 1. Well, once I mentioned that the right to life should be the first fundamental right, and then there is jurisprudence that, well, even more important than the right to life is the right to equality, and in conflict areas can be understandable. But the very first fundamental right is human dignity. You mentioned it is not an absolute value. You should tell me, perhaps not now, but a little bit more during with a drink. What do you mean, but not an absolute value? If there is one absolute value, according to my reading, ethical and legal reading, is exactly human dignity. But perhaps that will be for the next conference. Maria. I would love to have your ideas. I don't have read it in the presentation and also in the document of the special rapporteur about ownership, about who is the owner and who is the steering. What about the steering process of AI and of technology? Choices are made by who? And there, of course, you mentioned as one of the. I was so happy. It was number 5 and number 6. The robust legal framework and policy framework. I should put it number 2, number 3. But anyway, that's just a joke. But remember the basic notion of the Belgian linguistic case. The first jurisprudence of the European Court of Human Rights on education. One of the core paragraphs is the right to education requires the duty, the obligation of the state to regulate education. Regulation what will differ from time to place, but the duty of the state to regulate. My question, Maria, and I guess you will love that kind of question, who has to regulate? Well, we have European, but it is a transnational issue, it is a universal issue, it's a global issue. So it is a global question. Who has the competence and the responsibility and the duty to regulate? I would hope that the special rapporteur would answer that very delicate issue because it's dealing with balances of it, yeah. And then, as all of us do know, well, we are reading all those international competitive indicators and also global education monitoring group. But also there are also regional documents on the lack in Africa, for instance. And I visited a couple of months ago rural areas in Africa, with in huge territories, schools without buildings, without water, without toilets, and without electricity. The question could be linked. Isn't there not a positive duty of the economic factors of the industry to invest, to pay, under international supervision, of course, for those areas where there is no possibility to be connected? So it could be a positive obligation for, as a kind of a compensation. Perhaps it's utopia, I don't know, but still I would love to have your comment on if it is so, let's say, an empty idea, or if it is still next to reality. Then, Alexandre, there's a quite interesting proposal on the G-stick, and several persons were there, to change the notion of artificial intelligence to informed intelligence. That's just an idea, but there are several arguments to use that too, because it's indeed it's about information done by. But the question I wanted to raise is, and you are an expert on that. You took initiatives on several levels on parental involvement. Again, schools are providing, organizing education in loco parentis, on behalf of the parents. It's a parental duty and parental responsibility to make sure, and I can mention it in the negative or in the protective or in the restrictive way, to be sure that this is still in line with their convictions, with their opinion, and with their responsibility. And there again, the balance between school responsibility and parental responsibility. So is, but you are the champion. You are a champion on those issues. So you will definitely help us. And then in a positive way, I mentioned this morning the missing dimensions on, and you mentioned it, on creativity, on critical thinking, on entrepreneurship, on ethical dimension. What should be added to the whole stuff organized by technology? Is the parent, or to some extent is the school in local parentis, capable to try to fill the gap? Voilà. Chairperson, you are talking with your colleague. Sorry, Chairperson. you should follow those who are raising questions. So can you organize now the response? So I addressed, but perhaps collect all questions. Yeah,
yeah, I think it would be wiser to give the floor to Professor Baita, who I'm sure has a lot to contribute to the debate, and then give the speakers the floor. Oh, okay, also 2 other words. Perhaps Professor Baita had asked in the first place, and he was so kind to yield his.
Thank you to all the speakers. It very well connects with what we had in the morning. Well, there's a few things to mention. Maria, you said that digital technology could alleviate the tasks of the teacher. Interestingly, the report prepared by Education International on specifically the COVID situation, and actually reports that the duty of teachers with the introduction of digital technology has more than doubled. It's actually more work to organize a video class, load up your videos or your PowerPoints and things like that. So actually it's more work. So digitalization has made things more of an effort for us. That's one thing. Then I've got 2 nice quotes, which maybe bear out the distinction between humans and AI in the sphere of education. The one is, I don't know if you know the philosopher Heinrich Pestalozzi, who said, education is love and example. So I think in that you have already a lot of answers why AI cannot be education. I think example is a moral judgment, which a machine cannot make. And love, I also doubt that that is a capability of a machine. And the other one is by William Butler Yeats, who said education is not about filling the bucket, but it is about igniting the fire. So and that is what the reference this morning that I had to get Bista, who said that spoke about the beautiful risk of education. It is this risk that you might be able to ignite the fire as a human. I'm not sure a machine could ignite a fire. And the last comment, Marie, you quoted some figures. I just read the other day that when we alone speak about venture capital, I think the amount, the value of venture capital in EdTech at the moment is, or was like 2 years ago, $20 billion. And I read about one of those EdTech unicorns. I'm not sure if it was Course Hero or Udacity, that its value, the value of that company, is more than the education budgets of like the 30 or 40 poorest countries. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was an amazing panel, and I've been really inspired. I have two thoughts, ideas. One is about the teaching being personalized, and actually I agree with her that maybe AI and other tools can help to provide the cognitive part of learning, and which teachers can contribute is being in a mentor role, like being more personalized to student, as you said, that you are asking them how they are or trying to pay attention to them, and maybe these kind of technologies help teachers to focus more on these kind of aspects of the education. And my other idea was about what you said, that AI can create boxes and label student as someone is bad or good. But what came to my mind is the differentiated education, and the point is that point of that is to put children in boxes, but not label them as good as bad, but who needs more help, who needs less help, and the children who can do more individual work and need less frontal teaching or help from a teacher, that could work very well. And I think the point is that humans should be able to overrule the decision of for example, when the AI, based on the evaluation of children, puts them into boxes, and if the teacher sees that, okay, she evolved or he evolved, and can put to another box. So basically, the right to human evaluation as to really overrule AI's decision. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't like to use the notion AI because we, in that sense, we forget that this is an algorithm. This is a large language model algorithm. This is a software. And that software is pre-taught, and it just combines the preset data. I was thinking about, when I was listening to your presentation, which I really admire and really thank you, the surface of the circle and the value of the P. If I want the child to calculate the surface of the circle, it's a repetitive method of teaching and learning. It's not creativity on the beginning, the basis level. And I think it's a very important part to teach the teachers that the AI will not and should not eliminate this basic repetitive teaching method and work. And yes, there is a really need to personalize teaching methods without any robot and the algorithm softwares. That is a harm. That can be a harm. on this teaching method. Thank you.
Any other questions or remarks among the audience, qualified audience, actually? Okay. We may have given the impression that we are against technology in education. We are not against technology in education at all. Of course, technology can help us connect and bridge gaps. We are simply warning that technology is not the solution to our problems in education, that education is so much more than simply applying technologies or one or the other method. Education is about fostering the personality and freedom and socially committed individuals. So technology can help us, but it is not certainly going to do the job for us unless we apply ourselves. So please, let us give, 5 minutes per speaker to reply if possible. Yeah, perhaps Leonor, would you like to start?
I will try to be 5 minutes, and I will go by, in order. So, Sandra says so. It's really nice because you say, "Oh yeah, humbled. I don't speak English. So my English is really broken." Well,
No.
Anyway, so there is, as you said, we are in the fourth revolution. So AI is the fourth revolution in our economy. And but we do not be careful not to fall in a kind of Adanism and thinking that all that is new. What is not new, and I think that we must reread the philosophers, is the relationship between the technology and everything else. So technology is not new in our lives, in our world. So there's a lot of, not only in the recent centuries, but since ever, thoughts about what is our relationship with technology and what is the role of technology. So I point out here Jacques Ellul, which is an author, a philosopher I like very much. But if you read Habermas or Foucault, well, there is many ideas that are already there about how we deal with technology. The fact that it's a new technology doesn't pose a new questions. That is my field. So probably, exactly, it's a new technology, but the questions are very old. And I'm not afraid of posing those questions. So what the AI, the algorithm has changed in education, that is something that we see now in education, is the importance of long life learning. There is an area that it was very small and very specific, and where, because education is really based on the need of institutions providing the service of education, long life education was underdeveloped. And now that we have those technologies, is an area that is really flourishing in adult education. So if I wanted to have a MOOC or know something about AI, the principle, the basic technological principle of AI, I may go to a MOOC and just learn by myself, because the computer will lead the algorithm will lead my process of learning. So I think that is a field which is wonderful, and for exploring, for adapting our knowledge to a very changing situation. So thank you very much for your reflections, for your thoughts, because are really provocative. I wasn't this morning, so I arrived. I apologize. So I couldn't arrive on time for the inaugural lecture. It's true that I didn't mention in my speech any other risk on the content of education, but because not because I neglected the risks, it's because of the AI Act only defines as high-risk technologies that are related with access, with promotion, with distribution of students, evaluation, and e-proctoring. So, but that is why I used the idea of due diligence, or even the idea of the conformity assessment, because even technologies, as you said, that are related to the content of the curricula, for example, they don't fit into the high-risk technology. So it's like, oh, no, high-risk technology we can use freely. So my point is not, we cannot use it freely. Actually, we have a due diligence. We have other tools to control the conformity to fundamental rights, to the right of education of those apparently harmless technologies, like technologies on the content of the curricula. And now that you mentioned the idea of the responsibility of the schools, in our case, in the scale of Spain, I mean, is the responsibility of the state, actually, because it's this idea of responsibility of public administrations for the damages it creates, it poses. There is a report again of Human Rights Watch on the use of technologies during the COVID period. And the children were obliged to use a particular technology because the schools were using either Moodle platform or Google platform or Microsoft platform and so on and so forth. So the students were forced to sign those with these platforms, and the amount of data that these technological, the technology companies gathered from the use of parents and students was amazing. And those immediately, this data, not only about how good the student is, but how many applications it has, how much time it spends playing with or using TikTok or using the other game in the computer. All this kind of information was used to promote the art technology, so the technology of, or the industry of the arts for children. So the idea, and it's very revolutionary, but the idea is if there are damages provoked by the obligation of using a particular platform without no opt-out possibility, the state should be responsible for those damages, not only the school, but also and that is something new. Nobody, well, Human Rights Watch has launched the idea, but so far I don't see, in Spain there is no case of a responsibility of the state for damages caused by the obligation of using a particular platform, where the platform used the data, collected the data for the purposes. And the last thing, if I have time, is about boxes. And probably I was too basic, talking about good and bad students. What I mean is also that, imagine that in a course you have several levels of students, indeed, in the sense that students know better or worse certain contents, have some difficulties with adding, but not with multiplication, and have problems with constructing an essay, but not in spelling, whatever. So there is multiple issues. The problem is that, as I see, is that these educational technologies created boxes in which it puts the students, like, you are bad in spelling, boom, you fill up the boxes of bad in spelling. But that could be many things. And that is done with the supervision of any specialist. And that is the problem I have, that that the student now places in boxes without any supervision of anybody. And probably the algorithm was written by a guy who didn't know anything about the complexity of pedagogy. And the same happens with the following the line. So this technology says, okay, you have this problem, now you make that exercise, and the next step is that. Again, that is a way of narrowing down the way you evolve in education, because it's only one line, the line designed by the algorithm, not the line designed by a professor, a teacher who is beside you saying, that is why I don't like this, the functioning, the basic functioning of those technology is that. So there's no other way of, you can make the boxes smaller or larger, but there must be models, there must be profiles. And about the repetitive methods of teaching, as you mentioned, it's true that, but that is very much something that struck my mind, Alexandre said. What is the problem of repetitive? Not at all. So it's exactly what I think is that then when you repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat, sometimes it's, oh, fuck, I'm fed up. And come with a different idea. And creativity happens in the repetition, not in the lack of repetition. That is my belief. Thank you. And thank you very much for the comment, really.
So many ideas. And thank you. Yes, thank you very much for the questions. I really liked your question about involvement of youth, and the special rapporteur is very passionate about really asking people, young people, what do they want? Like, really, it's for you, it's for your future. And I fully support, we actually in the report we recommend that the governments or even the private sector should fund surveys or workshops for young people to understand what do they actually want from this technology and how will it help them to learn better. Or the recommendation for the government to create platforms for meaningful participation, not just tick the box, we've consulted the youth, but for meaningful participation, what do we actually take out of this conversation, and how can AI be used to enhance learning experience and not the other way around. So space for dialogue, meaningful, not just tick the box. And then a very important question, how we learn and how do we remain humans. How do we remain human entities in this interaction with the machines? What sets us aside as humans, right? As Jan said, creativity, critical thinking, entrepreneurial. But I would also like to add a couple of elements from the Transforming Education Summit. Learning to be a human person. Only you can learn it from another human person. Learning to do things. Learning, I don't know, to make pottery. Learning to live together is also something that can only learn from a human. And learning to learn is another important element that the human mind needs to, actually it's a skill that one should learn. On cultural diversity, this is a very interesting point, Jan. Just think about it. We need to have a separate conference on ethics of data training for AI, I think. Because just think about it. We all complain that algorithms are biased, yes, that the internet is biased because the algorithms are trained on the data found on the internet, sometimes manually filtered by those guys in California. California knows best. Manually tagging, okay, this is a guy with a dog. Oh no, maybe it's a woman with a dog, or maybe it's a black guy with a dog, or maybe it's a Hispanic guy with a dog. So like those people who tag images, they're not necessarily trained in equality and human rights. So, but if we talk, and this is about the importance of dialogue, if we had at the table here today somebody from the industry, and I would like to ask that person a question, okay, but how do you suggest we actually work with these algorithms to make them less biased? And he would say, I'm sure it would be he, and he would say, well, you know, this is the data we work with. If we start altering the data, where do we stop? Yeah? Yeah, okay, we can tell this algorithm, insert more black faces, and then you see a Nazi officer with a black face. Yeah? No, it's a famous meme, right? Because the computers don't think, they don't feel, they don't have empathy, but they just perform our commands. And if we give them a command, add more diversity, they add more diversity here and there without understanding where diversity is appropriate or reflective of reality. So, yes, let's talk with the industry people and ask them how this is actually possible to work with the algorithms to make them better. Who has the competence or responsibility to regulate? It's an excellent question. And again, in the report, we made recommendations to different actors. Say, at the level of the international community, the role of the international community is to coordinate approaches, right? To harmonize global standards, say data protection, or other more human rights frameworks. So that's at the level of the United Nations. But then at the level of the states need not to be shy in assuming their regulatory role when it comes to AI. And respect for human rights, because it is their responsibility, right? So it is their responsibility to, say, like the European Union did, delineate areas of high risk, low risk, and in accordance with their domestic procedures, establish those legislative or regulatory acts which are appropriate for those types of high risk or low risk areas. It's not up to us to dictate to the states what they have to regulate. They use their delineated responsibilities derived from international law. It's up to them, though, to increase budget for responsible, AI development projects, inclusive, transparent. It's up to them to create meaningful conversation within the society. It's up to the states to ensure oversight, to create oversight bodies, and to realize that there is a need for human oversight of AI-based decisions. So that's something they can do. It's also up to them to regulate private actors. And also there are recommendations for the private sector to simply, as a first step, comply with the business and human rights framework, which already has all the regulatory recommendations on what to do and how to deal with remedies for human rights violations caused by companies. It is a transnational issue, but there is already an international tool, almost legal tool, it's still a soft law instrument, to deal with violations caused by transnational actors. Also on a regulatory role, I'll just quickly mention one thing. 98. Yes, the importance of binding legal norms, right? In addition to just ethical frameworks, binding legal norms based on international human rights frameworks, important to protect children. We are talking about a technology used in schools by for children, by children, sometimes without their knowledge. So it's like giving them access to, the open sockets, right, without any safeguards. It is a responsibility to regulate that kind of danger. And also we forget about professional actors, say trade unions, teachers' unions, have in some countries binding agreements which are stronger than law. And we have examples of professional associations actually issuing advice on how to reflect this relationship between AI and education in these binding collective agreements. Yes, I agree with you, Klaus, on the teaching workload. We received also many submissions that sometimes teaching workload is not alleviated by AI, but actually creating double reporting lines. We need to write down these things and then also put it in the computer, right? So and also teachers are not always prepared to deal with this new function of analytics of all this data that is thrown upon them or that they have to collect. So they're just not prepared. And I really like the idea of teachers assuming more of a mentor role. And that's, again, something that sets aside human interaction between teachers and students from just mere repetitive learning through the machines. Teachers are there to provide emotional support, mentorship. They are human, educating other humans, right? And that helps in building so cognitive, socio-emotional development, critical thinking, empathic connections, which all contribute to deeper learning. But yes, more of a mentorship role and less of filling in endless papers. That's what I would support.
Okay, I'll be really quick. About the first question. Well, memorization has an important role in education because we all need to have some kind of background knowledge. I'm saying these words because I know these words literally by heart. It's how we speak. So when we start having the search machines like Google, our work became easier. Now with ChatGPT, it's much easier. And that is very liberating in the sense that we must ask ourselves the fundamental question, what I really need to know, what really needs to be permanently on my mind. And it's not an easy question to answer, but it's probably one of the most fundamental questions in education, what I really need to know by heart. About, as Professor Jan asked, the applications of artificial intelligence by parents, I would like just to tell a quick story from my home. I'm a parent of 3. I have 2 daughters of 9 years old and a boy 6-year-old. And I became obsessed some time ago with the Divine Comedy of Dante. I read a lot of versions and interpretations, and I was talking about this, and then my boy said to me one day, "Daddy, tell me about hell." He was meaning, tell me about the first book of the Divine Comedy. So our bedtime story began with hell. And I thought to myself how I could tell about this challenging book to a 6-year-old. And then ChatGPT came at my rescue, and I said, adapt the first canto of hell into a language accessible for a 6-year-old. And he did it. And it's now our bedtime story. But we'll go through purgatory and paradise also. Okay. Okay, it will get better. Okay, thank you.